You are listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show, the only news and podcast in English about AS Cittadella. Hello everyone, welcome back to the CittaCalcioUsa show, episode number 144, coming to you on Friday, October 11th. This is an emergency podcast episode because it is now official, been confirmed by the club on Friday that Edoardo Gorini has been sacked after 3 full seasons at the club, as well as the first 8 games, following Cittadella's record defeat against Sassuolo 6-1 last Saturday. That ended up being the last game for Gorini in charge. What does this mean now? Where does Cittadella go? And is there a replacement upcoming? So we will talk about this in this podcast episode. It's been a bit of a crazy past 24 hours or so, given the recent news. And if you were here earlier, you would known that we released a podcast just a few hours ago, and that ended up, we had to delete that because it was confirmed just a few hours later that Gorini has been fired and sacked. And so we wanted to make this new episode kind of recapping what happened this week, and as well as upcoming to the near future and next week's game against Cosenza. Remember, this is the international break right now, so this is kind of a perfect time for Cittadella to kind of regroup and to reassess on what they're going to do. We have a lot to talk about in this episode, as you could probably tell. So let's dive straight into it, shall we? So Friday morning, this happened during the night here in the United States, so we did not report on this until very much later. So this happened in the very early hours of the United States time zone, but it would kind of happen midday in Italy. Gorini announcing, or the club Cittadella announcing that Gorini has been sacked from his role and relieved from his duties. Now, we made a podcast episode on Thursday. We released it, but we did not post it on social media or anything. We were planning to do that today. However, things changed because of this announcement. We were talking in that episode about the game against Sassuolo, a 6-1 defeat. We went in depth in that episode, and as well as talking about Gorini possibly staying. There was a report from Padova Sport that was suggesting that Gorini was set to stay despite the result. But things had changed, so we had to make this episode because it would have been outdated by the time most people would have been listening to it. But it seemed like that 6-1 defeat against Sassuolo was the final nail in the coffin. Cittadella had lost their previous 3 matches after that game. The loss against Mantova, the loss against Frosinone, and against Sassuolo. It seemed like the team was lost. There was no real sense of identity and mentality. That's what kind of Stefano Marchetti was alluding to earlier in the week, that it was his worst loss ever as the sporting director, and he had never seen a team like that before. The DNA of Cittadella, the spirit of Cittadella, was never giving up regarding the result. And we've seen in the past, regardless of Cittadella, no matter how their team is constructed, no matter who they're playing up against, you get 90 minutes of hard work and really aggressive football that made it very difficult for the opponent, no matter how good of on paper they were. We did not see that in that Sassuolo game. It was a really poor performance, a performance that I've never seen Cittadella been like ever since I've started doing this podcast, ever since I started watching them many years back. And I think a lot of other fans in this, in Cittadella, would probably agree that that was probably the worst performance ever that people have seen. Worst ever statistical performance, because they had never lost by 5 goals or more, and that breaks a record. So that was Cittadella's worst ever defeat, a 6-1 defeat against Sassuolo. And that is truly the final nail in the coffin, because on Friday, Cittadella Cittadella confirmed. Sorry, I was looking at something on the news. Cittadella confirmed that Gorini has been relieved from his duties, and he is no longer the coach. The press release did say that Roberto Musso will take charge of the team for the moment. Later, Padova Sport suggested that that the new coach will be announced. Actually, Stefano Marchetti said in an interview that Monday morning there will be an announcement regarding the new coach and who will be in charge going forth. Cittadella, no games this week, obviously, because of the international break, but they are back on next Saturday at home against Cosenza, which is shaping up to be a really, really important match, as Cosenza are in 20th. This is almost kind of like a mini playoff, as if you want to call it that way. But Cosenza struggling, Cittadella struggling. This is set to be a very, very important game. But Marchetti said this was the hardest decision that he's ever made as boss. He said Gorini was like a brother to him. He had worked with Gorini for forever, as a player, as an assistant coach, and as a head coach. But these are the types of decisions that had to be made in football. And, I think Gorini's record, the stats really show for themselves. I mean, it has not been a good 2024 for Cittadella. Only 4 wins in this calendar year, finishing 11th, 15th, 14th. They weren't really progressing and had been risking a lot. And, extending the contract in the summer, it was a little bit of a risky move, and that risk did not pay off because Cittadella had suffered 16 losses in this calendar year. So I think it is definitely time for a change. I think this time is definitely right because they do have a little bit of a time period to work and to kind of regroup in order to start these next upcoming games, which will be tricky because Cittadella do have Cosenza and Carrarese, 2 clubs that are in the relegation zone and are looking to be very important fixtures for Cittadella. But then they have at home against Sampdoria, away against Palermo, home against Cesena, away against Bari, home against Juve Stabia, away against Spezia, and then home against Cremonese. So this is a very difficult stretch of games for the Granata, and this time period kind of offers a new reset for Cittadella. But this was very surprising when I woke up because I did not expect this. I did not think that they were actually going to sack Gorini. This was the first time that Cittadella had sacked a manager in over 30 years, I believe, or almost 30 years, since 1996, when they last sacked a coach. So this is definitely new territory for Cittadella. I still, it's only been a few hours since I've woken up and saw the news. This morning, I've been just, writing all the articles, making the graphics, and, kind of digesting all this news. But it seemed like Marchetti, the club, did make this decision. Now, Padova Sport recently came out suggesting that the new coach is likely to be Alessandro Dal Canto. His last role was manager of Carrarese for a year and a half. He's also coach of Viterbese, Livorno, Siena, Juventus under 19. And he's also coached Padova and Vicenza. So I haven't done much research on him, just given how it's early and it's not official yet. Marchetti did say on Monday morning there will be an announcement, but for now, Roberto Musso is currently taking over as head coach as of now. But on Monday, you'd expect someone or something to be announced by Cittadella regarding the new coach in that manner. There was also talks that Roberto Venturato is on the radar also, but those are just names on the list. Marchetti is still evaluating, and he says by Monday there will be a decision. But Padova Sport is reporting that it is almost done for Alessandro Dal Canto, ex-Carrarese, ex-Padova. So it's going to be very interesting to talk next week on the new podcast, because by that time we should know who the new coach is and getting you ready for that game against Cosenza. Now, this just wanted to be a quick podcast because there was a lot of information I just threw at you. I just wanted to give you the update because I felt like I uploaded the podcast yesterday, but just given how big of news of this, just given how this is really a bombshell of a news, I had to make a separate episode. So this is kind of filling in for that. But one more thing I want to say before I wrap things up is about Gorini. Now, I was very lucky enough to meet and shake hands with Gorini in March when I did go to Cittadella, as Gorini kind of briefly passed us and I was able to shake his hand. He did say thank you to me, and I said thank you to him as well. And, 3 years as head coach obviously didn't work out the way that Cittadella was hoping for in 2021 when he overtook Venturato as head coach. However, it is, that being said, I think Gorini was very well respected here at the club. He was very nice the times that I met him, the times that I've seen him in the conferenza stampa, the press conferences. Always very respectful for the media, always saying good morning, shaking hands to media members, no matter how good or bad the moment was at Cittadella. The other journalists saying he was a very respectful, very nice man. So it's definitely hard to say goodbye in this manner, just given how, it's definitely, I think, as a human side, Gorini was definitely a very respected in the Cittadella club, in the organization. However, it was the right time for change, and I think hopefully he understands that, and I think Marchetti understood that too, that he really didn't really want to let go of him, but he knew that this was right for the club. And like he said, it was the hardest decision he's ever made. And so I wish Gorini the best. I really do like him as a man, as the time that I met him and the times that I've seen him these last 3 years. I think as a man, he was very nice. And by the time he was a player, the assistant coach and head coach, I think he's always has a spot available to him at Cittadella. Unfortunate how it ended here, as a coaching role, but he will always be part of Cittadella history. So best of luck to Gorini in the future, and he's always welcome back at Cittadella anytime. But for me, I'm going to end this podcast here because I threw a lot of information out right now. Tune in next week for our next podcast. We'll have more information, news, updates on Cittadella's appointment of the new coach, which is scheduled to be on Monday. We'll talk about the new coach as well as previewing the game against Cosenza next Friday at the Stadio Pier Cesare Tombolato. But for now, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at CittaCalcioUsa for more updates on this coaching situation, and visit our website at CittaCalcioUsa.com where you could read more about these news and about the quotes of Marchetti, Gorini. You could find that all on CittaCalcioUsa.com. And we will see you next week regarding this, keeping you updated on this coaching change and the Cittadella news. That's all I have for right now. Signing off, and as always, Forza Citta. Thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. If you liked it, please share and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa. See you next time, and remember, Forza Citta.